Hey everyone, J7Jace here, bringing you a Final Fantasy Tactics video all about the mechanics of the different types of elements in the game, from how they work, the strengths and weaknesses of each element, and other various unique things about them. To start things off, we will be covering what all these terms mean: boost, weak, absorb, have, and negate. Just note, for your human characters, some of these can be granted by various equipment items, and some monsters may have these things passively. For boost, this will increase the damage done with your element by 25%. Just note that having multiple items that boost certain elements won't increase this percentage. For example, having Kaiser's shield and Black Robe equipped won't increase Balthier's magic gun damage by 50%. It will still be treated as a 25% increase. However, there are other ways to increase elemental damage, which leads us into our next topic of weak. If a monster has a weakness to an element, or if someone has an equipment item that makes them weak, for example, these Mind Flayer squids, or a human unit equipped with an ice shield, these units will take double damage or 200% extra damage from lightning element attacks, and this will stack with our elemental boost. And if there's a thunderstorm, they will take an additional 25% more lightning damage. But I'll make a weather related video in the future. Now these next three terms are a bit more obvious, I feel. Absorb will heal your HP instead of harming you for the amount. Have will reduce the elemental damage by half or by 50%. And lastly, negate will reduce the elemental damage to 0. Now let's move on to elemental types. Unlike Avatar, we have a total of 8 different elemental types, with fire, ice, lightning, water, wind, earth, holy, and dark being the representatives of Final Fantasy Tactics. Many abilities and a few weapons have one of the 8 elementals, so this can help you turn the tide of battle, or in a few cases, be used against you. Let's begin by going into the details with fire. I want to say it's probably the most common element in the game, with things like the Black Mage's fire abilities, Blaze Gun, Rafa and Merrick's Ashura, and the Greater Hydra and Tiamat's Tri-Flame being the most prominent. Just note that despite the way it looks, Flare isn't fire. And the only enemy that I know of that's immune to nearly all elements are the constructs, but you won't be seeing these too often. Now I recommend using fire type abilities versus skeletons, ghosts, treants, blue dragons, and even reavers, as these enemies are weak to it and therefore will take double damage. Just don't use it versus human enemies with flame shield equipped, bombs, and red dragons, as they will get healed from this. And in thunderstorms, your fire attacks will suffer a 25% reduction in damage. Although the oil status is quite niche, and you will probably rarely ever see it, the unit will take double damage once from a fire attack. Just note that the oil status works properly in the War of the Lions remaster, but it doesn't in the original Final Fantasy Tactics. Moving on to lightning, it's one of my favorite elements. It's a fairly common element, as the Black Mage's Thunderline has it, Summoner's Ramuh, and Rafa and Merrick's Heaven and Hell Wrath are of this element. Hardly anything in this game negates it, halves, or even absorbs it, making it quite a strong element in my opinion, so it's safe in virtually every single fight you will be in. Not to mention, I love the way it looks. The most noteworthy thing that nullifies it are rubber shoes, which can be a great accessory to use in Chapter 2, especially for your party members, at Balius Swale, and outside at Lionel Castle Gate, as quite a few enemies here like to use lightning weapons and even magic. With lightning, the most noteworthy thing you will deal double damage to are the squids in the Mind Flayer family and against the automatons, as well as human enemies with Ice Shield equipped. Lastly, we can't forget that you will gain a 25% damage increase in thunderstorms as well. Next, the ice element is a good time. It isn't as common as fire and lightning, but it's notable from the Black Mage's blizzard spells as well as the summoner's Shiva. but he can do quite a bit of double damage to many things, such as all the goblins, Malboros, Hydras, the Arimens, and the red dragons as well. It will do half damage to the bomb family, enemies with flame shield and white robe equipped, and there are some other items that can have ice damage. But in most cases, you won't ever encounter enemies ever using a Reverie shield or Minerva Bustier. The main thing you have to worry about with ice is when you use it against blue dragons, as they will heal from this, and some human enemies who have ice shield equipped, although I found this a lot less common. However, the automatons like Construct 7, the proto-constructs in the guarded temple, and of course the secret boss Elidibus are immune to ice. Lastly, during heavy snowstorms, your damage with ice will be increased by 25%, but in nearly all battles, besides the 2 optional battles at Golan, where Beowulf joins you as a guest, you will probably never need to really know about this kind of information. Next is the wind element, which really isn't all that common. Most players will probably see it through Air Knife and Wind Slash Bow later into the story, and you will sometimes see it with the Geomancer, as a few of the Geomancy abilities are wind-based, particularly Wind Slash, Sandstorm, and Wind Blast. Rafa and Merrick's Blade Mantra are also wind elemental, but you really won't be seeing it all that much. You will deal double damage to the Hydra family, so the 3-headed dragons, although it's probably better to use other abilities to kill them instead of wind elemental abilities. Last but not least, it will be halved by the Ahriman or the birds. Next is the element of Earth. It's really not that abundant in the game, but you will mostly see it with Shockwave or Earth Slash from the Monk, and maybe sometimes you may see it with Titan from the Summoner and Tremor from the Geomancer. There are a few other abilities, but you probably won't encounter them. Now, things that are weak to Earth are both the cat and the bird monsters, so you will be seeing nice double damage. If a unit has the float status though, they will be immune to Earth elementals. Now the next element I'll be covering is water, something we really don't see all that often. However, there are a number of water elemental abilities, such as, of course, Leviathan from the Summoner, Torrent and Quicksand from the Geomancer, the Maelstroms from Rafa and Merrick, and we can't forget Water Anima from the 2 skeletons. Despite its name, the Snowmelt Bomb is also a water elemental thrown weapon as well. You will deal double damage to all the bombs, all the Minotaurs, and anyone with the Flame Shield equipped. It will be absorbed by the Mind Flayer squids though, but because nothing is immune to water or can negate it without equipment, it is the most unique in this aspect. Second to last, we have the Holy Element. The only 2 abilities that are of Holy Element is of course Holy from the White Major Priest and Holy Breath from Raze's Dragonkin. Now for weapons with Holy Affinity, we have Holy Lance, Durandal, and Nirvana. Enemies that are weak to the Holy Element are ghosts and skeletons, so you'll be seeing some really nice numbers. And to further amplify your damage with Holy, some other unique items that will boost it is of course the Excalibur, and in War of the Lions, the Tainer Rouge. You can absorb this element from items like Excalibur and the infamous Chameleon Robe. Just note that the Archaeo and Ultima demons are immune to Holy surprisingly. Last but not least, I'll be covering the Dark Element. There really aren't that many things with Dark Affinity, but Unholy Darkness from Clishan, the Archaic demons and Ultima demons, Unholy Sacrifice from the Dark Knights' Dark, Lich from the Summoner, Dark Whisper from the Tiamat. As for weapons, it's only in War of the Lions, but all the Fell Swords have a dark element. And some other interesting facts is that nothing is weak to dark, so there will be no doing double damage. However, Nukai Armband will have any dark elemental attacks, and Minerva Bustier will make you immune to dark attacks. And you can't forget about the automatons too. Last but not least, don't try to use dark abilities on skeletons and ghosts, as this will heal them, so be careful. Now, what if you have two items equipped, one that halves and one that absorbs? Well, it will have that particular element while absorbing the rest. And lastly, what if you have an item that negates and one that absorbs? Well, depending on the item that you have equipped, it will negate the element completely. So, just in case you were wondering, if you have these two things on, this is what will happen. That about wraps it up for my guide on all the elemental properties and mechanics of the elements in Final Fantasy Tactics, as well as in War of the Lions. Check out the description for every single spell and detail for all the elemental affinities, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out greatly. And as always, take care and all the best to you.